The proportion of the world's population identified as white and of European descent has shifted dramatically over time, reflecting changes in global demographics and the complexities of defining such a group. At its highest point around 1900, this population accounted for a substantial share of humanity, with estimates ranging from 1/3 to nearly 2/5 of the total. Today, in 2025, that share has decreased, with estimates varying widely due to differing interpretations of white and European descent. This article examines that decline, from its historical peak to current figures, and explores projections for when this population might constitute just 5% of the global total. It incorporates a spectrum of definitions, from the strictest to the broadest, to provide a comprehensive view of past trends and future possibilities. The peak in 1900. A range of 33% to 40%. Around the year 1900, the white population of European descent reached its largest proportional share of the world's inhabitants, a moment tied to Europe's demographic strength and global influence. The global population at that time stood at approximately 1.6 billion people. Within Europe, roughly 400 million individuals lived, their numbers boosted by advancements in agriculture and industry that improved living conditions and reduced death rates. Beyond Europe, communities of European descent had established themselves worldwide, notably in North America, where the United States counted about 76 million people, most of European origin, along with Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and smaller enclaves in regions like Southern Africa and Latin America. Together, these groups totaled between 550 million and 600 million individuals. This figure translates to a range of 34% to 38% of the world population, with 35% often cited as a reasonable average. However, some analyses suggest a slightly wider range of 33% to 40%, depending on how European descent is interpreted. Under a stricter definition, counting only those with unmixed European ancestry living in Europe or settler colonies, the percentage might lean toward 33%. A broader approach, which includes individuals with partial European heritage in places like Latin America, could push the estimate closer to 40%. This peak marked a unique period when Europe and its diaspora outpaced growth in other regions, before significant population increases elsewhere reshaped the global landscape. The present in 2025. Estimates spanning 6% to 16%. By March 2025, the world's population has grown to approximately 8.2 billion, and the share of those considered white and of European descent has decreased considerably. Estimates of their current numbers range from 500 million to 1.3 billion, yielding a percentage of 6% to 16%. This variation arises from differing methods of counting and defining the group, reflecting both statistical approaches and cultural or genetic criteria. A commonly accepted estimate places the population at around 1 billion, or 12% to 13% of the global total. This includes approximately 740 million people in Europe, spanning Western and Eastern Europe, Russia's European regions, and smaller nations, along with about 200 million individuals of European ancestry in North America, roughly 190 million non-Hispanic whites in the US and 25 million in Canada, plus 25 to 30 million in Australia, New Zealand, and scattered diaspora communities in places like South Africa and Argentina. This calculation assumes white refers to individuals who primarily trace their lineage to Europe and identify as such, aligning with data from sources like the United Nations and national censuses. However, a broader definition expands this figure to 1.15 billion to 1.3 billion, or 14% to 16%. This approach counts not only those who identify as white but also individuals with significant European ancestry, even if mixed with other backgrounds. For example, it might include 100 to 200 million people in Latin America, such as Brazil's 50 million who identify as white, plus others with European heritage who do not, along with some U.S. Hispanics of predominantly European origin. This wider lens reflects a more inclusive understanding of European descent, capturing genetic contributions rather than strict self-identification. On the narrower end, a stricter definition yields 750 million to 820 million, or 9% to 10%. This count focuses primarily on Europe's 740 million residents and a minimal diaspora, excluding those with mixed ancestry or those outside core European settled regions like North America and Oceania. It emphasizes unmixed European lineage and geographic concentration. The strictest interpretations produce even lower estimates, ranging from 500 million to 650 million, or 6% to 8%. These figures might limit the count to Western Europe alone, approximately 450 million, paired with a reduced tally in the US, e.g., 100 million, counting only those with no non-European ancestry, and minimal contributions elsewhere. Such estimates, while less common, appear in discussions that prioritize specific genetic markers, e.g., unmixed Northern European descent, or cultural purity over broader demographic trends. Though not mainstream, they highlight the lower boundary of possible calculations. Factors influencing the decline. Several dynamics have contributed to the reduction from 33% to 40% in 1900 to the current 6% to 16% range. Fertility rates among populations of European descent average 1.5 to 1.6 children per woman, below the replacement level of 2.1, while regions like Sub-Saharan Africa maintain higher rates, such as 4.5, fueling global population growth. The world's total has increased more than five-fold since 1900, with Asia and Africa experiencing the most significant expansions, thereby reducing the relative share of European-descended groups. Additionally, intermarriage has risen, evidenced by 17% of U.S. marriages in 2015 being interracial, leading some individuals with European ancestry to identify with other or mixed categories, further complicating counts. Projections for reaching 5%. Earliest and average timelines. Looking ahead, the white population of European descent is projected to decline further, potentially reaching 5% of the world's population, a level that varies by starting estimate and rate of change. The United Nations forecasts a global population of 9.7 billion by 2050, peaking at 10.3 billion in the 2080s and stabilizing at 10.2 billion by 2100, with most growth in Sub-Saharan Africa. At 5%, the European descent population would number approximately 510 million in a 10.2 billion person world. Under the earliest plausible scenario, this could occur between 2080 and 2100. Starting from a lower current estimate, such as 750 million 9% in 2025, and assuming a rapid decline of 1% to 1.5% per year, driven by a sharp drop in fertility, e.g. to 1.0, and negligible migration, the population could fall to 700 million by 2050, 7% of 9.7 billion, and reach 510 million by the late 21st century. This accelerated timeline, while possible, requires conditions more extreme than current trends suggest. A more average projection places the 5% mark between 2150 and 2200. Beginning with 1 billion, 12%, in 2025, a moderate annual decline of 0.5% to 1%, consistent with today's fertility rates and aging populations, would see numbers drop to 900 million by 2050, 9% of 9.7 billion, 800 million by 2100, 8% of 10.2 billion, and approximately 500 million by 2150 to 2200, 5% of a stabilized 10 billion. This timeline assumes a gradual reduction, tempered by some migration and intermixing, and aligns with long-term demographic expectations. From the broadest starting point of 1.3 billion, 16%, reaching 5% could extend beyond 2200, requiring a slower decline or additional growth in global totals. Conversely, from the strictest 500 million, 6%, the 5% threshold might arrive sooner, potentially by 2100, if decline rates exceed 1% annually. Variables shaping the future. These projections depend on several factors. Fertility rates, migration patterns, and how white and European descent are defined over time will influence outcomes. A significant decrease in births or increased outmigration could hasten the decline, while immigration into Europe or North America might slow it. Changes in identity, whether through intermixing or cultural shifts, could also redefine the population size. Broader environmental, technological, and political developments add further uncertainty to long-term forecasts. Conclusion. The white population of European descent has decreased from a high of 33% to 40% of the world's population in 1900 to an estimated 6% to 16% in 2025, with 12% serving as a balanced midpoint. This range reflects diverse definitions, from the strictest focus on unmixed European lineage, 6% to 8%, to the broadest inclusion of partial ancestry, 14% to 16%. Projections suggest this group could reach 5% as early as 2080 to 2100 under rapid decline, or more typically between 2150 and 2200 based on moderate trends, a span of 250 to 300 years from its peak. This trajectory illustrates the evolving nature of global demographics, shaped by both historical forces and the fluidity of human identity.